Hello everyone and welcome back to the NSG video series. Today we are very pleased to have Professor Sara Loos with us. Professor Loos holds a PhD from Harvard University and is currently an assistant professor of economics at Bocconi University. Her research interests are at the intersection of development economics, political economy and economic history, and she already did research in several countries in Africa, South America and Asia. Professor Loos, thank you very much for being here today and answering some questions for us. Professor, for the people which were not able to attend us today, could you please give us a short overview on the paper you just presented?
Of course. Okay. So the project I presented today is trying to understand how kinship systems, which are basically ways of organizing families, matter for household relations. The idea being that economists, when they're thinking about inter-household bargaining, really focus on the nuclear household, but that in many places, these broader social structures, such as kinship systems, may influence the way spouses cooperate. And so I look at this in the context of the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is intersected by the matrilineal belt, which means you have many different matrilineal and patrilineal ethnic groups in a common setting. Sort of the key difference between matrilineal and patrilineal ethnic groups is that in a matrilineal group, you trace group membership through the wife rather than the husband. So the children will belong to sort of the wife's broader kin group rather than the husband's broader kin group. And so in short, what I find is that matrilineal kinship systems seem to decrease spousal cooperation in an experimental setting. But despite sort of this, we find that matrilineal women and children seem to be better off. So matrilineal women are much less likely to have experienced domestic violence, and then children of matrilineal women are healthier and better educated.
Okay, thank you very much for that. What are policy implications that you can deduct from these results?
So I think probably one of the key insights isn't that we should have matrilineal systems everywhere, but more importantly, how we think about cooperation and what it means to observe cooperation in a setting where there's high levels of domestic violence. So if a wife is being cooperative with her husband, does that mean she's being coerced? Or is it because she really believes that she's going to benefit from this cooperation? And here the insight would be that it may actually be that the more empowered you are, you have sort of the ability to be less cooperative with your spouse.
Okay. One of your fields of interest is in economic history, and you worked on several papers which had this as topic. So what can we learn from economic history in development economics and in economics in general?
Yeah, so I think economic history is particularly important for understanding long-run development. Maybe I can talk about a specific project because I think it sort of highlights what we can learn from economic history. So I have a paper that's trying to understand how exposure to medical campaigns conducted by the French government during the colonial era matters for health-seeking behavior today. And so the French were interested in preventing the spread of sleeping sickness, which is a lethal disease. And to do that, between the 1920s and the 1950s, they had these mobile medical campaigns that injected hundreds of thousands of people with these medications meant to prevent sleeping sickness. So it sounds like maybe a good idea if we think these medications are effective. It turns out actually that these medications had really serious side effects and that people didn't consent to participating. And so, in short, what we find is that being exposed to these campaigns makes you less trusting of modern medicine today. And then you can sort of see that you're much less likely, for example, to have your children immunized as the more exposure historically you've had to the campaign. And so what does economic history have to say for present-day development? Well, I think this paper really highlights that it's really important to understand historical experiences to understand present-day behavior. So in this case, if you are implementing a health campaign and you're finding that many people are choosing not to have their children vaccinated, why might that be the case? And this sort of highlights why, and then also how you might deal with it.
Okay, then thank you very much for your time and for answering these questions.
Okay.
And for you, that was Professor Loos from Bocconi University. Please join us the next time as well when it's time for NSG video series.